welcome to the first episode of the Bitcoinlens podcast. So, today I wanted to cover something that I've kind of been involved in the last 10 years or so, and that is real estate. And I wanted to go ahead and compare that to Bitcoin from an investment perspective. So, firstly, real estate, like I said, I've been involved with in at least the last 10 years. Cryptocurrency, I've been involved with investing in at least the last 7, 8 years. And then Bitcoin, I've actually only recently adopted, like within the last year or so. So I just kind of wanted to today give you some of the insights and why I think Bitcoin is a superior investment than real estate. Now, keep in mind, I am not a financial advisor, and this is not financial advice. This is strictly just my opinion based on my personal journey. So, with that said, let's jump into this. Now, the first thing that kind of comes to my mind when I think of some of the cons of property is property taxes. So, property taxes is something that I have no control over what that amount's going to be every year, and the amount seems to increase every year. You can have extreme property taxes, based on where you live. Certain states in the South and Midwest may be a little bit cheaper than some of the property taxes you'll find on the US East Coast or West Coast. So that is one big consideration. Next, insurance. Insurance is one that you don't really know until you get into real estate investing. And whether it's long-term real estate investments or short-term investments, you're going to have homeowners insurance, then you're going to have renters insurance on top of that. If you use it as a rental property or a short-term vacation rental, you will have to have additional insurance provisions because you're renting it out and it's not you living there. In addition to that, you'll have, if you have a mortgage on the property, you'll have private mortgage insurance just to cover that mortgage for the lending company, as well as title insurance. So title insurance is another big one that people forget about. Not a big amount, but also it's just a little annoying little fee that you have to pay as well. So what a lot of people don't realize with short-term vacation rentals like Airbnbs or VRBOs or whatever app you use to list your property on is that you do have hotel occupancy fees. So hotel occupancy fees is exactly what the hotels pay when they have a guest come through, and that's just something you have to pay to the city and the county in order to give them a little bit of a piece of that pie, as well as some local fees as well that you may have to pay for each transaction. So those are three big ones: taxes, insurance, and STVR fees. The list kind of goes on though. HOA and COA fees. So those are basically homeowners association fees or condo association fees, and that's basically to take care of the external or the exterior piece of, whatever townhome or condo, property you have. That includes like yard work and things like that. But those fees can really kind of add up quickly. They can range anywhere from 75 to 125, 150 in, your more modest states. And then if you move to the east or the west coast of the US, these fees can go into the thousands per month. So that will really kind of tap into your equity you're trying to build on these properties. Another big one we overlook is maintenance. Maintenance is huge. That is something that I kind of underestimated before we bought a property or bought a few properties. Once we got to like about 3 or 4 properties, we were like, okay, well now it's starting to become annoying because I do have a day job. My wife has a day job, and covering maintenance like plumbing, electrical, furniture, small electronics, anything like that, windows even, that can really add up quickly. If you offer a washing machine and a dryer to your renters, that could be something as well that adds up pretty quickly. Another thing, so these are all things obviously that you do not see in Bitcoin for obvious reasons. Now, with Airbnb, there is also utility fees. That's another fee we forget about as landlords and investors. Is I'm gonna have to pay for the gas, the electrical, the water. maybe sewer fees, maybe some other city fees. I know some cities have some unique fees that only they require, but that's another thing to consider, and that can quickly add up to be two, three, 400, even $1,000 a month. Now, demanding renters, that's a big one. Demanding renters and Airbnb guests, honestly, both of them are, that could be something that tap into your freedom. So, if you're an investor, the ideal investment, in my opinion, is you invest, you watch your money grow, and you don't get disturbed too much. But with these renters and Airbnb guests, although most of them are fine, perfectly fine, you're going to have some that are really demanding and having you come do some small fixes here and there, just routinely, just every few weeks, every few months, depending on your renters. With Airbnb guests, it could be even more complex sometimes, because with renters, at least you can kind of build some kind of rapport. You can do some nice review of your renters to make sure everything is good on the financial side, and criminal history and all those things. On the Airbnb side, you have a little bit more. You have more variables, if you will, as far as like various guests, just different personalities. Different personalities staying in your property could lead to different demands, could lead to different interpretation of your instructions. They may have higher standards, like even if you have a perfectly clean property, they could find little things that you never thought anyone could find. As far as what you provide during their stay, those are all things to consider. Now, real estate appreciation is obviously great for most parts of the US. You are going to have appreciating properties. If you've been here for the last 10, 20 years, your property has probably appreciated by quite a bit. Now, how much of that is inflation? I think a pretty good portion of that's inflation. And one way to look at that versus Bitcoin is, if you just look at the last 8 years or so, 2016, for instance, I believe the median price of a house was about $230,000. In Bitcoin, it was about 660 odd, for a median house back in 2016. Then you fast forward to 2020, and a house is now about $280,000. And in Bitcoin terms, it is 64 Bitcoin in 2020. Then you fast forward to today, 2024, and a median house about $438,000. In Bitcoin terms, that's about roughly 6.6 Bitcoin, depending on what time of the year you're looking at the price, but roughly. So as you can see, there's a bit of a trend. These houses are appreciating at a rapid speed, in my opinion, most likely due to inflation, more monetary expansion, more currency flow, and Bitcoin, the price of most things, including real estate, just keep going down in terms of Bitcoin. So, stacking that Bitcoin is really important, and holding it, because as you can see, your buying power increases dramatically, and you're most likely getting your Bitcoin at a much cheaper rate, even without the appreciation in the house, if you're holding it for 4 years. So another thing is the real estate supply. The real estate supply is not finite. The real estate supply could change every week, every month, every year. I could live in a beautiful townhome, very attractive to an investor, and then a few months later, a few years later, a couple investors decide, or a couple developers decide to build a large property right next to me with similar specs, and now it dilutes my property. So that's another big thing to consider. And, with Bitcoin, obviously, you don't have that problem. So friendly jurisdictions, this is kind of, for me personally, this is a really big one. And what I mean with this is, if I want to move to a jurisdiction that's friendlier from a tax perspective, friendlier from fees perspective and penalties perspective, and just oversight perspective, I'm going to want to be somewhere where those laws or those rules are the friendliest toward me. So, with a real estate, if I happen to land, or if my jurisdiction happens to evolve into a anti-citizen or anti-free market jurisdiction, I'm kind of stuck. I can't move my house to across borders. I can't move my house to a different state. I can't move my house to a different country. And with Bitcoin, of course, I do not have that problem. So Bitcoin, of course, as well. You have 21 million Bitcoin, and that is a big one for me. Just kind of moving from that jurisdiction point I just made, the 21 million Bitcoin is huge because, if you stack one Bitcoin, 10 Bitcoin, or even just 100 sats today, you're always going to have that amount out of 21 million. And unfortunately, you can't say the same about houses. So that is a big selling point for me when I try and invest in Bitcoin. Now, if you want to go on a little more extreme side, and I don't see myself as a conspiracy theorist, but government seizing your real estate, this could be something that in a very extreme situation where everything's falling apart. That could obviously be something, but that you need to consider, and just something to look out for. Obviously, with Bitcoin, that's going to be extremely difficult. Just considering it's anonymous. We have self custody. It's easily transferable across borders, and with real estate, you don't have that luxury. So those are kind of the main points. I'm sure I missed a few, but those are the kind of the ones that stuck out to me, having been a real estate investor and now having been in Bitcoin for the last year or so. I hope that was useful, and definitely would like your feedback in the comment section. But yeah, I see you all in the next podcast and hope you enjoy that. Thank you.